In this video, we'll discuss how to get better at face reading faster and how to approach that process. Enjoy.
Hey everybody. I had someone ask me the other day, Gray, how do I get better at face reading faster? And I'm going to say, as always, there are no shortcuts in life. You have to study and learn like everybody else. But that said, there are some ways, and I would say a specific way to accelerate the process of face reading. So if you're watching my content and you're tuning in to the weekly readings and watching the tutorials, you're going to be learning how to face read, whether you know it or not. So how do you speed that process up? This comes from personality assessment. We all have different aptitudes and all of us know ourselves relatively well. Sure, we can know more. Sure, that process can be made better. But you have to look at yourself, and I'm going to give you a lens to sort of filter this process. If you've watched my content, you'll hear me talk about the three treasures, Jing, Qi, and Shen. Now, if you protect these, it's said in the East, this ensures a life of longevity, health, and resiliency. So you want to protect these. These are what help you live a long time. We can see Jing, Qi, and Shen expressed in the face. So when we look at Jing, the Western context, the way to think about this is genetics. So we want to think the easiest place to see this is in the bone structure. Big dominant bone structure, big dominant Jing. Now, the Qi level of the face is typically where we see color fluctuations on a day-to-day basis. So for example, if you go into the sauna, you come out red. Why? Because you've come into contact with very high heat, your face is flush, therefore the look of your face and the coloring of your face is going to change. If you have not slept well, you're going to be dark under the eyes. So you want to think of daily fluctuations, okay? The coloring changes that happen on a day-to-day basis depending on how we live and what we're doing. That relates to the Qi level, how we're using our energy and what we're encountering on a day-to-day basis. Then we're looking at the Shen, the consciousness, or the anima, or the spirit of a person. So, with all that being said, you think about those as three layers, okay? Jing being at the bottom, Qi being in the middle, and Shen being at the top. The higher you go up on that pyramid, the higher you go up on those levels, the more immaterial, abstract, and intuitive the assessment process of face reading becomes. So, for instance, if you are a person who is someone who needs tangibles, you need to hold the building blocks when you're doing things. When you're learning, you have to touch things. You need to have real, tangible metrics. You're going to read Jing probably pretty well. Now, if you are a person who is kind of in between, you can sort of feel your way through certain things, but also need some material tangibility. I don't even know if that's a word. I hope it is. Then Qi, you'll probably read pretty well. And if you are a person who is highly intuitive and definitely falls into that category of abstraction, where abstraction comes naturally to you, if that's the case, then you're probably going to read Shen pretty well. Now, when I was learning face reading from my late teacher, Lillian Bridges, she used to tell me, she said, depending on your personality structure, everyone is going to learn at different rates in different areas. So typically, everyone who is trying to learn face reading is going to learn face reading very well and very easily in one of these areas. They're going to read Jing very well, Qi very well, or Shen very well. Then they might, if they're lucky, have a second area where they read it just as well or almost as well. And then there's going to be one layer that's harder to read. So what I found is when I was learning, I read Jing very well. That was naturally where I kind of fell into suit. That was where I was able to assess genetic strength. I was just good at that layer. The next one, where I was almost as good, I would say, was in the Shen department, and then Qi was the hardest. Not because I couldn't see color changes, but that was harder for me for some reason. Just seeing the daily fluctuations and the relevance in terms of how I think about things, it was a little trickier. I've gotten better over time. The point is, look at your own personality structure. Where do you fall on that spectrum? Are you highly intuitive? Are you a bit more materialistic and where you need tangible things to hold and to see? The point is, once you identify that, hone in on what you do well. So as you face read other people, you might be like, well, I can't read Shen very well, and I just can't get into that abstract, intuitive lens of this process. That's all right. Don't worry about that, because the beautiful part that's enmeshed into Eastern philosophy is that all is one. So mind, body, spirit are all one. Jing, Qi, and Shen are all the same energy being expressed 3 different ways. And if you are studying one of those, or 2 of those, or 3 of those, but if you're even studying one, you are going to, by default, over time, learn and integrate the others. So face reading can be very overwhelming. It's a huge topic. It's its own universe. It's an entire branch of Chinese medicine in a sense. So people oftentimes are like, there's just so much information. How am I ever going to learn this? Don't worry about that. Start small. As they say, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Face reading is no different. Focus on what you're good at. And I'll leave you with this. This is one of the best things my late teacher told me. Lillian used to say to me, she said, look, I used to travel to Seattle and I would work one-on-one with her at her institute in Seattle. And I'd have these weekends with her where I would just sit one-on-one. She'd take me out to lunch. She was incredibly sweet, such a kind soul. And she said, look, we're going to go through a lot this weekend. And I'm going to throw a lot at you. And I'm going to not pull any punches, and I'm going to not keep any secrets. I'm going to try to teach you everything I've got. And she said, just remember, whatever I share with you, some things are really going to stick and some things are going to fall right off of you. And if that's the case, she said, don't worry about that. Don't worry about what falls by the wayside. What I want you to focus on are those little nuggets that I share with you that you can't stop thinking about. The things that in the weeks and months after you've left here, you can't stop thinking about it and you kind of mull over and maybe even kind of obsess over. She said, that's your access point to learning, the things that stick. So I offer that up to all of you as well. As you're learning face reading, as you're going through this process, whether you want to be a quote unquote face reader or not, or you're just trying to learn the skill in the most rudimentary sense, don't get too hung up on the complexity of face reading. Start with what you're good at, focus on what sticks, and really dive into the areas that make sense to you. And from there, because it's an organic living art, the rest of the knowledge will organically find its way into your mind, body, and spirit. All right, y'all. Take care.